Hey everybody, this is Talking of Carl back again for another spoiler review. This time for season one of Moon Knight. Like, of course, I went through each episode, just like you all, just like everybody else. I went through each episode one by one. But then, all through, the past couple of days, I rewatched all six episodes back to back. Good thing it's only six episodes. Uh, uh, to refresh myself all at one go. So technically, I've seen the season twice, so I can be catch certain things I didn't catch before. But yeah, I think I got. I know I did like a MCU ranking earlier in the year, and like this is way before even the Hawkeye came out. I know it was like late last year. This is before I think either before or after Hawkeye came out. I think it's before Hawkeye came out. But it's like as far as like the TV shows are concerned, I rank still Loki is number one, but I think Moon Knight easily number two, Hawkeye number three, Falcon and Winter Soldier four, and Vision because still kind of irked about the whole Quicksilver thing and how the show slowly started and some of the ways it ended really put it WandaVision on a very low tier for me, unfortunately. Even though there's some good moments in there in the middle. But man, but like Moon Knight, very solid. Oscar Isaac, like the performance of Oscar Isaac and like everybody else involved is just superb work. Uh and just brilliant acting across the board. Uh but yeah, in case you don't know, because by the way, this has certain hints to the Moon Knight comic book run that I did, my first comic book review of on the channel. If you can check it out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkingofcarl. It has elements of certain panels in that comic in this show. I think it's called New Egypt or something like that. I think the arc is called. Is pardon a few certain things. I was kind of all over the place. It was my first time doing comic book reviews, but I wanted to do that because I knew this show was coming out eventually. I figured let me do it's one of the Moon Knight stuff that I really want to dive into to because I only seen read certain Moon Knight here and there throughout the years. But that one was the first solid Moon Knight run that I got jump on into. That was a good jumping on point for if you want some Moon Knight reading. Check out my video to get a better understanding. But yeah. So we are introduced to Stephen Grant, this person from London, who, maybe because my American ears, I thought he did like a impressive London accent, but some people who are from London probably can tell certain things. Like for the most part, they say he did a good job, but it's like certain hints and bits and pieces here and there. It's like a little like off here and there, but it's like by and large, he did a great job with the accent. And then, of course, he flips into because he has DID, dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple identity disorder. And he has three different alternate personalities. In the comics, that's what he has. His main personality is Mark Spector, who at first is in like the back of the mind. And we see mostly Stephen Grant, who people thought would have been like flipping on his head from the comics to have Stephen Grant be the main personality and Mark Spector to be the alternate. But no, they stay true. Mark Spector is the main body. And of course, there's also Jake Lockley, who we don't get to see until like the tail end in like a post credits in the end of the season. Which I kind of bummed because like they've been teasing him here and there throughout the season, but I guess they figured like, okay, we might feel bloated if we try to throw in Jake Lockley and try to establish him. And of course, Oscar Isaac mentioned earlier how like before the season started that it's supposed to be like a one and done thing for him, but it's like, is that true, or is he trying to like milk more money out of Disney? Uh, but yeah, uh, but Jake Lockley is some kind of secret badass. I mean, like some John Wick level of a badass, because Mark is like a former mercenary, and who died by one of his partners, who's you know try to kill everybody on the this Egypt excavation kind of mission. And then he proceeds to I mean like deceased, but like he thought he was gonna die at the feet of this altar of Khonshu, who spares his life to serve him into serving out justice for those who uh, did do ill will onto others. So we go into like the livelihood of Stephen Grant, who seems to have like sleep problems. He's like tying himself to the bed and like put sand around his bed, and then put like paint tape, this blue tape on his doors, just to make sure he knows whether or not he's left out the house, because he has like some kind of what he thought is sleeping problems. He seems like very neurotic, very people pleasing kind of thing. And then because his like he's like works at the gift shop at the museum in London, and his boss is a total bitch and just mean to him for no doggone reason, just like walk all over him. And then like some coworker reconfirming this date they supposed to have, and Stevie doesn't understand like what she's talking about, because like he doesn't remember asking her out for anything, especially to like a steak restaurant, and Stephen Grant is like a vegetarian. And at first, on first viewing, you think, oh, that must be Mark, but no, Mark is married to this lady named Layla, who we'll see in the next episode. But obviously now rewatching it, it turns out it might have been Jake Lockley, because who knows how, because it's not 100% confirmed how he gets out, because it seems more not manual, but later on you'll see manual switching back and forth. But at first it seems like Mark and Steven is triggered by whomever needs the other. And it's like you see at a certain point like Layla screaming out for Mark, like Mark, it's like I need to speak to you, Mark, and then Mark just be summons, and like like, and it's like Mark is there, or if Steven is needed, like it's like whoever's the host relinquishes like the body, so the other can step in to deal with whatever, because you would think like Stephen would be useless, but he has some useful moments when like his knowledge is needed, because his knowledge of Egyptology, and there's a few vibes here from Brandon Fraser's The Mummy, and even certain spots from like maybe you see like Layla gets a costume that some people point out, oh, that's very Wonder Woman, and it's like, oh yeah, but my first thought was the old 90s TV show Mummies Alive. If you ever recall that TV show, I think one of the characters, is very Power Ranger-esque, but one of the characters kind of has some kind of wings. I think the leader has some kind of very wingspan kind of thing where you can fly or whatnot. Kind of reminds me of that for some reason. I haven't thought about Mummies Alive for years, but as soon as you see like Layla's wings, it's like, Mummies Alive? It's like, you don't, something you don't think about, so for such a long time, and something happens and it kind of brings it to the forefront. But anywho, I get ahead of myself, but like you see like Steven's like freaking out a little bit. It's like it's like things are happening I don't understand. And like one moment waking up in the middle of the field somewhere very like near a castle, and it's like he wakes up and it's like this is like, you know, not R, but it's like TVM something or other, something with a T. And it's like he got like a broken jaw and he's reading a line in it, and it's like, you know, he's getting shot at. He doesn't know where he's at. He runs into this middle of this village, which at first, when this episode first aired, people assumed this must be somewhere near maybe Latveria, very Dr. Doomis village. But he somehow like has taken this kind of scarab and it turns out to be some kind of compass to the Egyptian goddess Amet's tomb, who's supposed to be this deity with a crocodile head who's judging people before they commit any acts, which is kind of almost polar opposite to what Khonshu does, who only punishes people who actually commits the crime and not before they make the choice. Because you're judging, because you'll later see on the next episode, it's like you kind of judging people before they actually get the chance to even do or even conceive of doing anything. Yes, but he's running through this field, and then he sees like Arthur Harrow being played by Ethan Hawke, who at the beginning of the episode you see him breaking glass and putting in his sandals, trying to, you know, self-punish himself for the sake of his god, who turns out, you know, who used to be the servant of Khonshu, but has never seen, which would be like an episode dedicated to, kind of like Kingpin's, like an episode dedicated to what his life was like during his servitude to Khonshu, and how because, you know, Mark and Steven has different versions of the Moon Knight costume. You got Mark gets the actual Moon Knight costume, and Steven gets the Mr. Knight costume. And the Mr. Knight costume looks very, very swanky. I love that the whole, like, it's so clean and like so, you know, very nice looking. And I promise you, in like this year's cons all across the U.S. or even internationally, whoever gets like these kind of like Comic Cons, I bet you it's gonna be like a shitload of Moon Knight costumes. It's all you pretty much, probably about as much as you see Harley Quinn and Deadpool. You'll see a shit ton of Moon Knight costumes, but it's probably only gonna be like a handful of actually very good looking ones. But you know, Steven sees Arthur Harrow judging, got his tattoo of scales, like Amet scales, and he's, you know, see if the scales balance, to see if like he potentially, whether or not will be very altruistic in the future, while others, if their scales are imbalanced, that means that at some point in the future they will do something devastating, potentially, and so they immediately get judged to the afterlife. And that's not what is typically done, or at least that's not how the rule's supposed to play out. It's like you gotta allow people to run their, you know, lives through the proper course of their life. To, you know, yes, some people do, you know, shitty things, but you also gotta give them the chance to make up for those shitty things. Or if they reach the end of their life properly, and they, you know, done so many bad things that's imbalanced, then yeah, that's when you properly would judge them to whether or not to be, in this case, banish them to either the Field of Reeds, which is paradise if they're deemed balanced, or to the sands of whatever means their life was imbalanced. You also get like a little blurb, because you don't get a lot of other mentions of other parts of the MCU, but this is probably like the only one. No, you get a mention of Madripoor, and you get a mention of the ceremonial afterlife of the Black Panther, like the Panther god Bast, and his version of the afterlife, or African afterlife. And it's like, it's nice given the fact that, considering in Thor Love and Thunder, you get Gore the God Butcher, who's going to be killing a lot of gods. It's nice to confirm that, all these different pantheons share this universe. So they all live side by side. But depending on who you choose to worship is who you, just like with, T'Challa and the Wakandas, they believe in Bast. That's their religion. So upon their death, that's where they go. Or if you're a Christian, that's, you go to heaven and hell. That's how, like, you'll see. And blase, blase, blase from there. But, you see Arthur killing this old woman whose scales are imbalanced. Like, she's an old woman. It's like, what the fuck's she gonna do by this point? But then Stephen is spotted, and he has the Scarab. Then Arthur wants the Scarab, and like you hear Khonshu, who, by the way, I'm thoroughly impressed with this show, because you almost in every episode you get like an image of Khonshu, and it's like he has the CGI work is impressive as hell. It's like he has weight, he has presence. It's like, it doesn't even look CGI half the time. It looks so good. It's like, yeah, this dude, got some dimension, some weight and presence to him that it's like, it's hard to tell. It's like, sometimes. And it's like, and you get a creep factor about him too at first, until you get used to him being there. But it's like, man, it looks so good. But you hear Khonshu speaking inside Steven's head, and it's like, you hear funny moments with Khonshu. It's like, oh, great, the idiot's in control. And as Khonshu can be very condescending, calling people worms and stuff like that. And it's like, it's like, just because he's like a god, you look at people as like, kind of lower life forms kind of situation. But he's manipulating Stephen to keep him from giving the Scarab to Arthur. And it's like, then as like people are trying to crowd around Stephen, he blacks out and he wakes up seconds later, and he's like surrounded by like a bunch of dead henchmen, and his hands are bloody, and it's like he doesn't know what the hell happened. And it's like, you assume it's Mark, but it's like the level of like, death. I mean, the extremeness of the death. You later on, you consider like there might be some spots where Jake took control. Like I said, he's teased so much, you never get to see him like actually in action. You can only assume maybe it's on some level of John Wick stuff. Because Mark is skilled, but I don't know. It's just like the level of like, taking people out on a certain scale is like probably beyond maybe what Mark is even capable of. But anyway, Steven takes control of his cupcake truck. He starts driving around, and then like he blacks out again, and you see a bunch of people just dead, and like they really like lean in with like, like allowing like, just like with Daredevil and so forth, allowing certain, not graphic, but just like leaning into like, yeah, this is not meant for kids. And matter of fact, when this pilot aired, that's when like they made updates to the streaming service to where you make a pin for yourself, so not just any kid can just go into Disney Plus to be able to watch anything, especially without like the parents making that pin. So you have to make sure like the kids are monitored, because like I think this is like the best outlet, rather than like ignoring or sending certain shows to Hulu. No, they're all gonna be on Disney Plus. So Steven wakes back up into his apartment, and then he realizes like, everything's freaking real. He sees Khonshu on the street, and he sees like Arthur Harrow on the bus with him, and then he's having a talk with like Arthur Harrow, seeing that he has like followers and stuff like that, and he's trying to figure out if the scales balance with Steven, and he's like, Steven's heart is in chaos. But then later on sends like this demon dog after Steven. Steven realizes like he shares a body with Mark. Mark takes over, turns the Moon Knight, beats the hell out of that demon dog thing. And I think it's like some kind of like Anubis like kind of jackal dog beast. But then like because of the ordeal and the destruction in the bathroom and whatever, Steven is assumed to be the one responsible. He loses his job, and then like he tried to go on this date, but like it's been 2 days since that ordeal at the village, and she assumed like he stood her up. And it's brilliant acting on Oscar Isaac's pocket. You see, he's trying to hold in like a cry as he's trying to order a steak, which he's a vegetarian, but he doesn't care at this point. He's like, he feels like his life is in shambles. He doesn't know what's going on. And he later on you see like none of his is in his head. He goes to this he finds a phone and keys to this locker to the storage unit, and he sees all Mark's stuff. Then Mark tells him like you gotta allow me to control. You don't know what you're in. You don't know what you're dealing with. And then things are freaking out, and Khonshu was like in the hallway, and like every time Khonshu's in the hallway and the light is dimming and flickering, it's like you freaking out, like oh my god, and he runs outside and he bumps into Layla, and like the actress is brilliant, and like he's trying to tell Layla everything because like she's doesn't know about his like split personality. She assumed that's still Mark, just doing like an accent, and she's in like I don't know if she's an Egyptologist or like what you see in like in the Mummy movies where she's like treasure hunting or whatever. But Mark is telling Steven like if you tell her she'll be in danger, and from people, very dangerous people. Then she hides away as like 2 goons sent by Arthur Harrow kidnaps Steven and realize Steven has like split personality, and like he realized that he's the host of the new host of Khonshu. And it's like I like this part when it's like because Khonshu actually has a presence. It's not some kind of like thing in Mark's head just speaking with him. No, he can move. He's there. He just by and large is invisible or just ethereal and just because as Harold puts it, like he's not. He can't do much without a host. All he can do is just move certain things a little bit, and he throws a tantrum like a 2-year-old or something like that. And it's like, you see like here, Khonshu's like, punch him in the throat. It's like, is he telling you to hurt me? and it's like, and then he's trying to like sway Steven. It's like, and like, you can tell like, yeah, he used to be the host before Steven or before Mark because he reciting pretty much word for word what Khonshu was saying to Steven. It's like, oh, what's he telling you now? I'm the fist of Khonshu, or I'm the fist of justice. And it's like, yeah, exactly what he said. And it's like, that whole dialogue is so great. And like, that's when like, he's telling like, I'm the avatar to Ammit. And it's like, Ammit, like, by the time like Khonshu's fist of justice comes down, the deed is already done. And, there's already been suffering. And it's like with Ammit, she can, deal with that before it even gets to that point. And it's like, and Steven points out, it's like, so like how far did it go? Like, are you going to punish a child for what he or she might do 30 years later? And like in Arthur's comparing it to you know, gangrenous limb that has to be cut off to save the body as a whole. And it's like, well, a child is not a weed or a gangrenous limb. This is still a child. And it's like, I like this one where it's like, Steven turned around to everybody else like, you all are on board with that, killing children, because that's where I draw the line. And then he's trying to get the scarab from Steven, but Steven doesn't have it. Layla comes in and kicks some ass, saving Steven, and then Arthur summons like the jackal thing again. And then, Steven summoning his suit, which, Mark tells him like, summon the suit. And then because it's a different personality, it's different variation of the suit, and it's a little more sharper in Mr. Knight costume, which is so good on live action. Obviously, it's just a suit, but also like Moon Knight suit, because it's like very mummy-esque kind of costume, and he gets like these moon bladed kind of like batarangs, but like moon shaped batarangs, and then you can just pull off from his chest, and it's like you can just keep pulling, and it never runs out. And it looks like it has some weight to him. It's like very hard disc, like, boomerangs kind of thing. And like Mark just like stares on him through the mirror's reflective surface. It's like, what is this, Steven? It's like, Colonel Sanders, what's going on? And then like, him and Mark deals with the jackal, and they head off to Egypt because Arthur has the scarab. This is where people and not lose people, but this is the episode kind of like kind of confusing to a certain degree, to where like Mark is trying to who's in control now, try to get some answers or where the Amet's tomb is, to beat Arthur there, to prevent him summoning her to Earth. And there was a moment where like this kid, as he's trying to interrogate this kid, like Khonshu's like, take him to the edge of the building, of the cliff, and like Mark does it and holds him by like the kid's scarf. It's like, tell me where the tomb is. And like the kid just like takes a knife and just cuts his own scarf and falls to death. And like, holy shit. And you see her Khonshu saying like, I didn't think he actually would do that. I was like I didn't know you actually would do that. Wow. And you can see how insidious Arthur is in manipulating people and bringing them into the fold. He's just like a no pun intended, but a mark of a good cult leader. But then like without any leads, Khonshu decides to manipulate the sky, which is against the rules, in order to like get all the other available Egyptian gods to summon them into the Pyramid of Giza, which is where they hold court. And where it's like, trying to get them to act on Arthur Harrow, because, there are certain Egyptian gods who are in prison for crimes against like either the gods or humanity as a whole. And they explain why like they haven't been influential in the lives of mankind since the time of Egypt, because they one of them puts it like, they forgot about us, so we don't interfere anymore. Only the interference we have is like our avatars, who are watchful eyes, on our behalf. Then I thought, it's like, man, so basically what you're saying is you're just as useless as the Eternals. Whereas like, you don't think wiping out half of the universe, Earth included, half the population of the Earth, is a code red for you to step in and deal with fucking Thanos? And I was like, you may have the Infinity, as I watched Death Battle, because there's like an episode where Thanos versus Darkseid, and they mentioned that Thanos used the Infinity Gauntlet to become a god, but Darkseid actually was one. Slight spoilers, but these are actual gods, and Thanos is just a pretender. He might, put up a fight with these gods, but all of them together, he's really not much of a, don't have much of a chance. And it's like, y'all could have done something. Same thing with Eternals. Y'all could have done something. But the whole court thing is like a farce, because like they all believe Arthur Harrow so quickly. I mean, y'all gods, y'all should be able to be omnipotent enough to know that this guy is full of shit and he's trying to pull an underhanded move by summoning Amon. Even if there's a slight chance of him doing something like that, it's like, what purpose would Mark and Khonshu have for lying about something this serious? Like, you wouldn't do this if it wasn't important. So at the very least, y'all should investigate. At least, like, take a good look at the area where they said, like, Amon's tomb might be, and see, like, a possible dig site. Or at least get a truth serum. Or I'm pretty sure one of the guys can go inside Arthur's mind or something. But the whole entire thing is a farce just to make Mark look. He does need help, but like he says, like, it doesn't change the fact that this guy is full of crap. But they don't believe him, and Khonshu gets a warning about, like, messing with, like, this guy again, which he does later in order to, like, achieve something greater. But Mark meets up with Layla, who speaking with this, like, black marketeer, turns out to be, like, because I didn't notice at first until like a week after this episode aired, where this guy, I forgot his name, but he died after filming this, who was one that's like, he was, turned out to be, because I didn't recognize him at first because like so many years has passed and he grown to be like a very handsome dude. And he had like a full, scruffy beard. But if you ever watched like the movie, well, at least like, I forgot the name of the movie, was kind of like a prequel to like the Silence of the Lambs and like Hannibal movies. It's like young Hannibal Lecter, and I forgot what the movie's called, but it's like, his origin story, and the guy played like a young Hannibal, and that's who he was. I didn't recognize him at first. It's been a very long time since I've seen that movie, but that's who it was. And after filming this episode, he died. I don't know, it was like from like an accident, or I don't know, like medical health wise, something, like natural causes or something like that. So R.I.P. for that guy, because he was very great. I did like him in that movie, but these are the only two things I ever seen him in off the top of my head. But they get a chance to look at like this like sarcophagus that will lead them to this certain spot in the desert. And turns out, like, thanks to Steven figuring it out, like, see, the constellations is different. This is the constellations of that specific time in Egypt. And things change over time, like constellations and like, geography and all the other stuff. Like, it's not going to be the same spot. So Khonshu warps the, sky to the specific time of that specific era so they can pinpoint the location. But this caused the gods to intercede and imprison Khonshu for disobeying them yet again. So Mark and Steven don't have, like, the Moon Knight powers anymore. They're vulnerable. So they go, and this is very Brendan Fraser's Mummy at this point. They find the tomb, and it's like, it's like, everything's so cool. It's like Steven's obviously, catching feelings with Layla, even though she at first was serving papers to Mark for divorce papers, but Steven's having feelings for her, and she's re-getting feelings for both, ironically, both Steven and Mark. Uh, but Steven gives her a kiss, and then it's like a funny moment where like Mark just like, as much as he can control the fist to punch Steven right in the freaking face. And it's kind of like reminiscent of the movie Split. There's plenty of people who work with people with DID or people with DID themselves mentions how like the movie Split and Moon Knight TV show really does like a good service to people of that ilk, because by and large people assume people with like split personalities, one of them might be a serial killer, and it's always been like demonized or villainized in Hollywood movies for such a long time. But it's like things like this really shed a light on that, give people a little bit more nuance. There's more to it than what you've seen in the past, which I really think is a good thing. And while investigating the tomb, you see like, bullet casings and fresh blood, and you see like these mummies, like these demonic mummies, like taking a few of the Arthur Harrow's henchmen and carving them up and putting them in these like chromatic jars. And it's like, man, this is straight like the fucking Brendan Fraser mummy, almost, pretty much. I have to expect you see Brendan Fraser and Richard Weisz filming the next, area of the tomb. Pretty much is exact same doggone thing. It's so good. And I think by this point, because it's obviously like a nod to Brendan Fraser's mummy movies, and I think we reached to the point where it's like that Brendan Fraser's mummy films kind of surpassed the Boris Karloff mummy, because even though, because I think I've seen it only one time as a kid with my grandfather, but I vaguely barely remember it. And it's like, as renowned as those movies have, the Boris Karloff version has been in cinema history, by and large, people remember the Brendan Fraser version and consider it the mummy movie. And I think we reached that point in this episode. I think people like do callbacks to Brendan Fraser's mummy more so than Boris Karloff. And that's just my opinion. Now, they're running away from this thing, and Layla managed to, defeat this thing, but then Harrow comes in and, tells her about like, how much do you know about Mark Spector? And like he has a hand in her father's death, because she assumed that, he died in like a excavation site or something, like a cave-in or something. And then she confronts Mark, and like he explains to her that, one of his guys, turned on him. He killed everybody, including him, and that's when Khonshu resurrected him, and he became his avatar. And she was hurt because, most people get annoyed when these kind of things, like, you had ample amount of time to like come clean about this stuff, especially when like the villain, trying to seed that kind of stuff in that friend or loved one's head that kind of fractures the relationship. You could have got ahead of all that by just, okay, the jig is up at this point. Tell him now before it gets worse. And so Harrow comes in. He shoots Mark, takes the scarab. I mean, like, not the scarab, but like, because it turns out to be the lost sarcophagus of Alexander the Great. And Stephen finds out, okay, he finds out the answer to the mystery of like where, like, because, I guess Alexander the Great used to be the avatar to Ammit. And he keeps like the, imprisoned Ammit inside his gullet in his mummified corpse to keep Tomb Raiders from like finding it. So he snags it out of the gullet and like, sorry, Mr. the Great, sorry. And he's like, pulls it out. Arthur takes it, kills like Mark, and goes back to the Great Pyramid of Giza, kills off panel or off screen the other Avatar gods, and it's like, okay, that seems, that part I thought lacked. Okay, it's like we don't get like any. It's fine if they lose, but we want to see them some kind of like put some kind of fight, like all these avatars fighting each other, put some kind of, obviously have some power and put some better, like let us see the fight. And why you gotta handle it off screen? But it's like, yeah, you should have probably listened to Mark when he explained to you, like, watch out for this guy, or at least keep an eye on this guy. But like now you're all dead. But now like Steven's in the, in between, or like kind of in the afterlife, on the way to like the final destination, and you get to see the hippo guy, god, and I forgot her name, but great, mix between CGI and real, like, not prosthetics, but like like animatronics or something like that. And you get to see like this hippo. I just call her hippo because I can't remember her Egyptian name. And she drops hints about like, the panther god Bast afterlife with Wakanda. And you get I like the expression that she does with her hands, and like the mouth, and like the ears fluttering, and it's like everything's like it's got some expression about her, and I think it's so good. And she's like, like, hiya, and it's like, because she points out that people can't like their minds can't handle like what like the actual thing is in the afterlife, so their minds put something they can understand, which is a psych ward, which is like a first for her. So because Mark is like clearly like mentally unstable, not unstable, it's like obviously something wrong with him mentally. But then this is the episode where you get to see Mark's past, to where he got like a when he had like a little brother, and he went to this like hidden cave entrance, and since it was raining, it was flooding, and because of that, his little brother drowned, and like his mother blames him. She became like very unhinged and abusive, and that part really got me, because like dealing with like a shitty stepmother, and just like certain mother issues in general, like that hit me very hard, especially when she perceived like Stephen was created to protect Mark, at least a certain degree, when like he's dealing with like abuse and stuff like that. But you get to see like, yeah, because Moon Knight and Ben Grimm and Kitty Pryde in Marvel Comics is on top of my head is the three most recognized Jewish superheroes in comic books. And before the season started, I was a little concerned, because like for the longest time I thought like, okay, Oscar Isaac, great actor, not taking that away from him whatsoever, but for the longest time I thought he was just Guatemalan, until like if you watch like Roxy Stryer on YouTube, great person, like I follow her a lot. She's so cool and funny, and Jewish herself. And like I remember posting to her, it's like it was like a slight nitpick, and kind of, because I did not know this, because she pointed out like Oscar Isaac, he probably don't practice it, but he is part of Jewish descent. I was like, oh, okay, like fuck me then. I like did I know that, because it wasn't on his like Wikipedia at the time. I probably didn't look too deep then again, but I just thought it was Guatemalan. That's basically all I saw. But yeah, it was he you see like a lot of people wearing yarmulkes and everything like that. And it's like I kind of wish like the father like did more, because that's what's saying, it hit me a lot, because personally, because like I feel like my father doesn't do much in dealing with like you know like an abusive mom. Like now that like I dealt with extreme abuse, but like definitely verbal abuse, and like as a kid, like definitely get hit a lot, and call it corporal punishment, but still wasn't right. Uh, and it's like, and then like she died in natural causes when like Mark well within his adulthood, and it's like he refused to go in because he hadn't the mother he hadn't dealt with like what the mother did, and she obviously was unhinged and definitely should have gotten some help, and doesn't really shown any type of the father should have gotten his wife some help instead of seems like from what I've saw from the scenes seems very passive. And it's like there son, she's going through a lot, and it's like give her some fucking help, because she's not even showing to her own other son's birthday, and like she blaming him and like beating him, and like what are you doing? But then it's like and that is too much for Mark at a certain point, and then Steven becomes understandable why he was created. It's not because you're just Mark's stress ball, but like you became a very important part of him to deal with certain things that mentally he's like was too stressed. It's too much stressful, and this kind of thing might happen. Not might. There's plenty of people with DID who dealt with very, very traumatic situations, especially at young kids, that might end up, resulting in DID cases. Like you see that in the movie Split, and it's like, that character, James McAvoy's character, I forgot, Kevin Crumb, as a little kid, his father died in a train accident. Train like derailment, thanks to Mr. Glass. By the way, check out my Unbreakable trilogy spoiler reviews. I covered all that, one of my first movie reviews on the channel, so check those out. I go in full more in depth with those, with all that there. But you see certain clips in Mr. Glass movie where it's like Kevin's mom is just like I don't know if she was drunk or well, no, I don't know if she was drunk. I think she was off her rocker too, but she's the only caretaker looking after Kevin, and she was beating him constantly, resulting in him forming 23 personalities through the course of time. But then after because Hippo is trying to make sure they come to grips with each other about certain things about their past in order to keep their scales balanced before they go to the end of the gates to try to bring them back to life. But they didn't make it in time, or at least do it in time, and the ghost of the past coming from the sand, trying to take them to the sand dunes, but Steven, saves Mark's life, and keeps him from falling into the sand, but falls in the sand himself, and he freezes into the sand, and Mark gets to the end of the reeds, field of reeds, and Mark, not cool with that, goes back to the sands, even though it's a danger to him. He takes his heart and puts it into the open hand of Stevens, like you're my superpower, and this saves them from that ultimate fate. And they go to the gate, come back to life. Khonshu is already reawakened thanks to Layla, and Hippo's giving her like some assistance, and Khonshu because Amma is revived, and like you see like a battle between these two gods, and like later it turns into a kaiju battle, which is really cool. But then uh Hippo, taking up body of one of the avatars, and it's like because you hear all these tales from Mark about Layla, and she's just like very loudly like Layla. It's like Jesus, you are so loud. And it's like really you know giving away their location, and like kudos to the anybody who's being possessed by a hippo, has to do the hand expressions the way she does it, and it's like I took him to the field of the reeds. And it's like I got this fabulous costume for us, and it's like because she doesn't want to be taken over by anybody in the first place, but she temporarily agreed with Hippo. But that's the thing, we never, after the whole ordeal with like fighting Arthur Harrow and dealing with Ahmad, we never know what happened with Layla and her powers, because you see like a moment between like her saving this little girl, and in Egyptian this girl asks like, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?" And like she says, "I am," and it was like a little nice because like everybody around the world gets like like a superhero of their own. You see like T'Challa looking at this kid in on the basketball court at the end of Black Panther, and he asks like, "Who are you?" And it's like it's like you get to see like you as yourself through this icon, and you have this Egyptian little girl look at Layla as like an icon or a symbol, and that means a lot. And just like you see like Isaiah Bradley and like Falcon and Winter Soldier, and like how much it means to have a black Captain America, and like all that meant means something to somebody. But yeah, like Mark and Steven are revived. They're more in sync now, and remaking a deal with Khonshu, and it's like, Steven's like very cocky, and it's like, silly old bud. I was like, we should make a new deal now. By this point, since we just saved your life, it's like, are you negotiating now when the world's in peril? Learn from the best, silly old bud. And it's like agreed, like I'll release both of you if you help me with this. And so they go stop Arthur Harrow, and you see this awesome moment where you see like Stephen, Mark, and Layla, who very Wonder Woman Mummy is Alive type of costume, and like they kicking a lot of ass, and like you see like Mark and Steven flip flop back and forth different costumes, and of course you got these escrima sticks, very Daredevil with Mr. Knight, and just beating ass. And then like you see like Mark with a grapple gun for some reason, and just like does this thing like in Batman in the Injustice game, you use the grapple gun to pull yourself towards the enemy and kicks Arthur Harrow. But Arthur thing like you got like a one up on Mark. Then like Jake Lockley awakens, but you don't get to see him in action. All you see is like the aftermath, and Layla asks like, "What the hell was that?" And Mark and Steven doesn't know what the hell going on because neither one of them did that. But then because they need avatars to imprison an Egyptian god inside like a human body to make him vulnerable, they take Arthur's unconscious body and like forces Ahmad back into lock her into Arthur's body, and Khonshu's telling like kill them because they'll like try to revive again. And like Mark's like having none of that. Like I'm making a choice. If you want them dead so badly, you do it. And like and honor your agreement. And so he releases them from his servitude. And then like they're back at the apartment. You don't see what happened to Layla, and for all like They're living their life back in London. And then the post-credit scene, you see Jake Lockley taking like Arthur Harrow from this mental institution into this limo, because he's dressed very cabbie, like even with like the hat and everything like that, and he speaks like Spanish and everything like that. If like Steven is like very English accent, you got Spanish with Jake, and Khonshu sitting in the limo with Arthur, and it's like Mark and Steven doesn't know what's going on. They think like how they don't realize how damaged they really are. And like, I'll let you meet my friend. Like, knock knock. And this is Jake Lockley. And Jake Lockley just pulls out like a silencer and just like, I forgot what it is in Spanish, but basically he's saying like, now it's your turn to die. And it'll be a little more badass. He was like, Vaya con Dios, something like that. And just like, and then kills Arthur immediately. And it's like, some people thought it was kind of like a lackluster ending to that villain because, just taken out so like matter of factly, and it's like guess not as epic as you probably expected it to be. And then you see the license plate display Spectre on it, and I think that was pretty cool. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoy Moon Knight. It's really good. Like all the actors involved, especially Oscar Isaac, is just top-notch acting, and I love the CGI of Khonshu, because in normal circumstances, when it comes to TV shows with like Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., with like Ghost Rider, they had to use that sparingly, only when it counts, because you don't have like the kind of like the budget to constantly do it. But this is Disney, and after like the first 10 years of the Infinity Saga, they accumulated enough money to afford, especially in 6 episodes, to have like ever-present Khonshu, in each episode. These are like a couple of times in each episode. It's like, except for I think every episode, yeah. Because even in that flashback into Worn Torn at Egypt, Khonshu was there. But yeah, it's number 2 as far as like my Disney Plus TV shows. It's number 2, like, right behind Loki. Loki's still number 1 to me. I think nothing will ever top Loki, honestly. Loki is so good. It's neck and neck with Hawkeye, because there's a lot of stuff in Hawkeye I thoroughly enjoy, but I think like Moon Knight is slightly above Hawkeye, and Hawkeye is like right there, number 3. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you thought of Moon Knight season 1, what you liked and what you dislike. And look forward. I don't know if I'm streaming more Marvel Ultimate Alliance this evening. But in case I don't, look forward to tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening, as I do a new Mother's Day, 2 Mother's Day based movies for you guys tomorrow. I will see you guys then. Take care.